We've been seeing a steady stream outside the courthouse. There, of course, with jury selection, we don't see the number of protests that are anticipated on the first day of trial, but we have seen people out protesting and demanding justice for George Floyd, but they are also calling on the names of other victims of alleged police brutality in the past, making sure people know their story as well. And there are those who have been very committed to this. One woman who's been a fixture at these protests, not just now, the Black Lives Matter movement, but even before, for many years, Toshira Garraway. She is the fiance of a man, Justin Tigan, who was died after an encounter with police back in 2009. This was specifically the St. Paul Police Department here in the Twin Cities. And she talked about how important it was to not only be a co-founder of the group Families, helping families against police violence, but also to be a staple here with George Floyd's trial underway.
I can't continue to live in the fear that they put in my heart at 23 years old. I had a regular life with that man. I had a child with that man. I had a family with him. And I was looking to buy my first home with him. And we were looking to get married and have more children. And that was stolen from me. Once we seen how badly Justin was beaten, and we watched this video that was clearly edited, we started trying to seek legal help. Now you have to remember, this was back in 2009, before there was a movement, and a lot of these murders were swept under the rug. The only difference between George Floyd and the rest of the hundreds of families here in Minnesota is that it was caught on Facebook Live, it spread too fast, and they weren't able to stop it. If they could stop that video and edit it like they did my son's father's video, like they did Justin's, it would have been their story, George Floyd's story, would have been the same like the rest of us. I met Jamar Clark's sister, Tiffany Burns, and Leslie. She was the head of the Minneapolis NAACP at the time I went to a meeting, and she introduced Jamar Clark's sister, Jamar, who was killed by the Minneapolis police here in Minnesota. She knew of Leslie, the president of NAACP at the time, knew my story, as well as everyone knew Jamar Clark's story. We were just talking, and we decided that there was no support here for families that lost their loved ones at the hands of law enforcement, just to try to work together and build a bridge where there is now a gap between the people in the political seats and the community. You know, it's hundreds behind George that led up to George Floyd. There has only been one officer in the state of Minnesota to ever be convicted of killing a person in the community, a civilian, and that happened to be the minority officer that killed a white woman. And the people in the seats that had a chance to make changes refused to do so, and that is why George Floyd is gone today. I pray, I ask God to protect me. I come out more with my story, so if anything does happen, people will know. I try to build relationships with others, but mainly I pray and I ask God to protect me, because I know that I'm doing the right thing, and I'm not just fighting for my son's father. I'm fighting so this man right here won't see the day that me and my son had to see, that they stop killing black men for no reason. I'm not just fighting for my brothers. I have two brothers. I'm not just fighting so they won't kill my son. I'm fighting so that every black man on this earth gets a chance to live. And what is worth living if it's not worth dying for? We have to stand up. And as a black woman, I will no longer sit back and watch them do this to our men. I feel bad for black men. They come forward all the time and tell me all these stories. I just had a friend come tell me how, as a little boy, it was an officer that patrolled the area that would just come and like beat up him and his friends, like beat them severely. And they never went home and told their moms because they were afraid, you know? So I pray and I ask God to protect me. That's all I can do. That's all I can do.
Tigan's body was found in a recycling bin in 2009. The Dakota medical examiner said that he died of asphyxiation accidentally being in that bin. This was hours after he was encountered with police during a traffic stop. Police say he fled on foot. Garraway says that his body appeared badly beaten when she was able to view it at the medical examiner's office. We've reached out to the St. Paul Police Department. They categorically deny any wrongdoing in the death of Tigan and say that they dispute any allegations that there was any kind of editing done to the surveillance video of that. But this is a reminder, Michael, of how much George Floyd's case in the minds of many here in the community is much larger than just his case, and how much more is riding on it for them when you see those other names, especially here in the Minnesota, Minneapolis, St. Paul area, of the names that we've seen in the headlines: Philando Castile, David Smith, Justine Damon, and you continue to see that when you talk to the people here and even going to George Floyd Square.
All right. Well, Julia, Janae, thank you so much for that report and for bringing to light these very, very important stories that are behind all the protests that we're seeing out there in Minneapolis. Appreciate it.